To begin, there are many narrative conventions that are seen across all genres of film. One of these conventions is how the story plays out, as seen in Todorov's narrative theory. This theory states that the narrative in most films begins with an equilibrium stage, followed by disruption, recognition, and finally resolution. It is conventional in trailers that it will begin with a short equilibrium stage, followed by disruption and a little bit of recognition, as these are the stages that sell the film to the audience. It is conventional that resolution is not included in trailers, as it spoils the story for the viewer. For my trailer, I have fully used this convention. My trailer begins with roughly 10 seconds of equilibrium, with the rest of the trailer being mostly disruption, as this is what sells the film to the audience. Another narrative convention is the use of binary opposites as proposed by Strauss. This theory suggests that texts rely on binary opposites to create a good story. The common binary opposite seen in horror films such as The Shining and Scream is good versus evil, and this binary opposite is used in my trailer, with the group of friends representing good and the mass killer representing evil. I use this convention as my story that I created revolves around this conflict of the killer going against the group of friends. Another binary opposite that I used is men and women. In my trailer, I've illustrated the character convention of a final female going against the killer personally, with the killer in this case being male. This binary opposite is very conventional, especially in horror as seen in films such as A Nightmare on Elm Street and The Shining. I've also used some of Barth's narrative codes. This theory suggests that narrative meaning is achieved through the use of codes. In my trailer, I've left the audience wanting to know more through the use of the Enigma code. The main enigma that is created is the identity of a mass killer, and the other is the identity of the other character who is not a part of the group of friends. This sort of enigma is also seen in trailers such as The Strangers. This is important to trailers as enigmas may be the reason why people go and see the final film, to solve the enigma. There are many conventions that are specific to genres and many theories that help define these conventions to the genres. One of these is Altman's semantic syntactic theory. I completely use and follow this theory, as the semantic elements I use are very conventional to the genre of horror. I use mise-en-scène of props to establish the genre with the use of a mask and a knife. However, they are commonly white to emphasize the lack of personality of the character. I've developed this convention by using a gold mask instead. I did this because the use of a white mask is now considered to be a parody of horror films automatically, and using something different could relaunch the classic elements of slasher films. I used an establishing shot at the beginning of the trailer to show the isolation of the location to the audience, and the majority of shots take place at night. All of these elements are related to the genre of horror. In terms of syntactic elements, I also use the conventions. My narrative of a group of friends being stalked and killed off is often always the storyline in slasher films such as Cabin in the Woods and Scream. Through the use of mise-en-scène and sound, my trailer demonstrates this narrative. My media product fits into the classic stage of genre as discussed by Christian Metz. This means that the genre of horror is firmly established and most conventions are followed, although it could be argued that my product automatically fits into parody because it follows conventions so closely. Audiences would think that my product would be classic, as real films such as the Scary Movie franchise established what parody films are supposed to be. In terms of institutions, I have again followed conventions by choosing institutions that are familiar with horror films. I have chosen Dimension as the producer of the film, as they made the Scream franchise, which my film is similar to. Because of this, I chose the Weinstein Company as the distributor, as they own Dimension films. In my trailer, both the logos are clearly presented after the equilibrium stage and at the end on the billing block. For representation, I identified and used many conventions in my trailer. First of all, I had a mass killer, whose identity is never revealed in the trailer, forming an enigma. In most slasher films, such as The Strangers and Scream, a masked figure is always used to keep the identity a secret. Along the victim group, there are a few typical representations I also used. One of these is the final girl, which theorist Carol Clover covers more of. She states that in horror films, there is a convention where the last woman alive has to confront the killer. Although in my trailer it is not clear who the final female is, the audience can guess based off common stereotypes of what this female is like, usually brunette and not sexualized. Another character that is often present in slashers is the blonde sexualized female. Laura Mulvey uses her male gaze theory to explain that film audiences have to view characters from the perspective of a heterosexual male. This often means that some female characters, stereotypically blondes in horrors, are over-sexualized. In my trailer, I have developed this convention by having a blonde female character, but deliberately not sexualizing her. The location that I used is also a common convention that I followed. In my establishing shot, I deliberately used a long shot to capture the isolation of a house, a convention used commonly across a genre such as Cabin in the Woods. The isolation is supposed to make the audience feel out of their comfort zone and to give the characters no chance of escape. For cinematography, I used and challenged some conventions. At the start of the trailer, I used an establishing shot to set the location to the audience. These shots are very common in trailers, especially horror trailers, as most horror films take place in one location. This shot shows where the narrative takes place and may give the audience a sense of isolation for slashers, as seen in the trailer for The Strangers, or a sense of creepiness for supernaturals, for example in the trailer for The Boy. Many horror trailers use close-ups and extreme close-ups, mostly to capture facial expressions of the cast. I have challenged this convention and have mostly used medium shots and medium long shots because of the actors not wanting to have close-ups of their faces. In almost every trailer for any genre, captions are used to give a backstory to a main character or to quickly explain part of the plot. In horror trailers, it is conventional to have simplistic fonts, usually black and white, and contain text that builds suspense. I have used this convention to full effect as my captions are very simplistic. This type of caption is also seen in The Strangers trailer. For editing in trailers, different editing techniques are conventionally used at different stages of the trailer. For most trailers, it is common that fades are used in the equilibrium stage to slow the pace and show that everything is normal, or to show the passage of time. This is seen in trailers such as The Strangers. I've also used fades in my equilibrium stage to show the passage of time. Cuts are mostly used during the disruption stage and throughout the montage in real trailers. This increases the pace of a trailer and shows the most exciting moments of the film, which ultimately sells the film to the audience. I've used and developed this convention as the disruption stage of my trailer uses a combination of fades and cuts, but my montage only uses cuts. Sound is very important in the making of a trailer, and a variety of sound methods are used. For horror trailers, stings are very common to emphasize specific moments of the trailer to the viewer. They are commonly used to give the viewer a quick scare, and they appear in both trailers and the film themselves.
Be good to him, won't you?
I have used a few stings in my trailer in both an attempt to scare the audience and to emphasize a key moment at the end. Especially during the equilibrium stage and disruption stage of the trailer, voiceovers are used by the main characters to explain some of the plot or to add suspense.
Worthy of global positioning.
That's the whole point. Get off the grid, right?
I've also used this convention by having one of the main characters explain part of a plot during equilibrium and another character speaking over captions to add suspense.
No one else. Just us.
I've also used the convention of a soundtrack to go over the majority of the trailer, depending on what stage the trailer was at. Conventionally, there will be a happy soundtrack during the equilibrium, as seen in trailers such as Cabin in the Woods, to set a happy mood, which I've also used during the equilibrium.
Everybody ready? Get the show on the road!
Doesn't even show up.
For horror trailers, the soundtrack will change to something more dark and fast-paced for the disruption stage of the narrative and the montage. I have again used this convention by including a mysterious and dark soundtrack over the montage.
I know it was hot!
To conclude, narrative conventions are very clear in my trailer, through the use of representation of a group of friends and a sense of conflict between them and a mass killer. Genre conventions are also closely followed, with mise-en-scène of props connoting the genre of slasher. Cinematography is the only area of trailers that I challenged and developed, by using a lack of close-ups to show emotion on a character's faces, which are conventionally used in all horror trailers.